Sup you beautiful people, hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku Had an Adaptation Quirk, the ability to adapt to survive. This has always been the driving force behind all human evolution. Izuku's quirk though, it takes that one step further, ensuing that whatever fails to kill him will just make him stronger, a force to bring doom against the villains who dare to stand in his way. If you guys enjoy this What If, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other What Ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Fire, smoke. Screaming, that was all Izuku could find in Hosu as he and Gang Orca ran through the streets, the other Orca sidekicks helping deal with the mayhem. Not only were several Nomu rampaging, but other local villains had taken the opportunity to join in the chaos, every hero doing what they could to try end the chaos. Currently, Izuku was helping a sidekick restrain a local thug with a blade creation quirk who tried to stab a fleeing civilians. "You, all right, Dauntless," Gang Orca shouted, the powerful hero landing a hard blow against a Nomo who let out a screech. For now, Izuku grunted, pulling out his own cement gun Gang Orca had been training him on how to use, hitting the flying Nomu at the joint of the wings as it stalled in the air, letting the pro land a hard blow. Good, Orca nodded, landing a killing blow on the Nomu. The Hero Commission having given standing orders that the biological weapons be killed if encountered given the nature of the monstrosities. Izuku trailed off, noting the trail of fresh blood leading into an alley. "I think there's someone injured that way." "Damn it all," Orca grunted, bracing himself as a thug with a stone body quirk charged in Kid. "You have permission to use your quirk as needed. Find whoever's hurt and get them out of there. Use the flares if you need backup." "Right," Izuku nodded, pushing down the giddy feeling at the trust his mentor was showing. Now was not the time for that. Shooting off, Izuku charged into the alleys, following the blood as the other sidekicks remained to fight the Nomu and thugs while escorting civilians. The city was all hands on deck, so this was a trial by fire. "Goodbye, child." Hearing a raspy voice, Izuku started running faster, a horrid feeling in his gut. May your death bring upon a better world. Rounding a corner, Izuku saw a man in black, covered in spikes and blades, standing over Ida and ready to commit murder. The pro-hero native collapsed against an alley wall. "Say what you will about me." Ida's voice was pouring out grief and pain, "but you'll still be nothing more than the villain who hurt my brother." Whatever Stain, as there's no one else this could be but the hero killer, was about to say, Izuku wouldn't find out as he charged in, his footsteps thunderous in the alley, the assassin leaping back to avoid the blow from his massive fist. "What, Dauntless?" Ida gaped, eyes widening when he saw who it was. "Tenya, can you get native out of here?" Izuku demanded even as he hastily reached into a pouch on the back of his tactical vest. I can't move my body." Ida grit his teeth. "It has to be his quirk, damn it." Izuku grit his teeth even as he found a flare gun he'd been looking for, shooting it straight up as the burning purple light filled the sky. The flare was something that Snatch and Crust had made sure every pro, sidekick, or hero student in the city was carrying. An alert that they'd found the hero killer. "Get out of here, Dauntless." "This isn't your fight, why do you even care?" Ida screamed, his body not moving an inch despite the clear desire to thrash about. "Shut up, you idiot." Izuku snapped at the engine quirk user. "I don't like you." "You don't like me? Big fucking deal. There's more important things right now." A slow clap filled the alley at those words as Izuku's head snapped towards Stain, who he just realized hadn't moved after dodging. The serial killer was standing there, watching, listening. "Ah, so I was right about you." Stain chuckled, eyes wide with manic glee, so close to being a real hero. "It is only your apathy that holds you back." Stain readied his blade as Izuku felt a chill go down his spine, even in his transformed state. He felt like he was in the gaze of a predator looking to play with their food. "Let's see what you can do." Stain charged, chipped and jagged blades ready, blades that Izuku had read reports could cut through thick walls of ice or metal without slowing. Meeting the charge, Izuku worked to dodge as best he could while still keeping himself between Ida and Native. "HMPH, you're not as fast as I'd hoped." Stain frowned, ducking and weaving through the punches Izuku was throwing, a thrown knife jamming into his cement gun to render it inoperable. "But you're still just a student. I won't let you get to them," Izuku snarled, giving his most intimidating look towards the hero killer. "Monsters like you like muscular. I refuse to allow you to keep up your murder." "Ah, that's right." Stain scoffed. "You seemed quite fond of those water hose fake. The comment was cut off as Izuku finally landed a clean blow to Stain, Izuku's fist bigger than the murderer's head as the villain went flying back. Gah! Izuku grimaced, noting the thin but lightly bleeding cut on his arm, the wound small enough that his regeneration closed it up quickly. Just a drop. Stain raised the sword that he'd cut Izuku's arm with, an unnaturally long and wide tongue slithering out to lick the blade and, more importantly, Izuku's blood, as he felt his body go rigid. "Your quirk," Izuku grit his teeth, trying to force through the paralysis. "You're using my blood as a catalyst to freeze me." "HMPH, smart," Stain smirked as he stalked forward, "and you're determined to be a true hero. You must learn to be less forgiving of the fakes that pollute our society, which tarnish the name of hero. Still, if you're all done with these distractions, then I have a couple fakes to kill before your backup arrives." The last comment was directed to the still lingering purple flare. Gritting his teeth, Izuku kept trying to break the quirk's hold, feeling his teeth crack from the pressure even as they worked to fix themselves. "Get away from them," Native snarled, the hero having managed to regain enough lucidity to glare at Stain despite the paralysis. "They're just kids, damn it." He gave up his right to live the second he called himself a hero and put revenge first. Stain scoffed, pausing to sneer at Native, and was therefore unprepared for the hard punch to slam into his back, sending the serial killer flying into a metal dumpster. "What's?" The bladed man shot his head up, glaring at Izuku, who could move again. "How?" Ida gaped. "I still can't move." "I can't either." Native struggled with renewed vigor. "It must have to do with blood type." Izuku's eyes widened as he remembered a small fact about his quirk he'd always discounted. He was designed to adapt perfectly, and his body had ended up making a special version of O blood, the universal donor. His could also let him adapt and receive any blood like someone with OB positive. "Damn," Stain grit his teeth. "I'll just have to move faster." The killer surged forward, not even slowed by the 2 hits Izuku had managed to land so far. Either he had more durability than he appeared to, or the man was better at working through pain than Izuku had expected. Izuku grunted at the thrown knives tossed his way, the weapons not able to get far into his skin but still pricked him like needles before falling. Less than before. Stain caught some of the blades before they hit the dirt, licking up the blood once again as Izuku stumbled from the paralysis quirk. But like before, he was only frozen for a few seconds before his blood released its grip on his muscles. "Troublesome." Stain narrowed his eyes as he seemed to come to a decision, moving in again, swapping out his chipped sword for 2 sturdy-looking daggers. The man was small and slippery, avoiding Izuku's strike as he cut at Izuku's ribs with one blade, bringing it to his own lips in one fluid motion even as he continued his slide towards a wide-eyed Ida. Then the hero killer recoiled with a startled yell, his tongue showing a blistered burn where Izuku's blood had touched him. Izuku himself, meanwhile, was doubled over, gasping as he felt his body roiling, like it was changing in a way it never had before. "Heads up, runts!" The eager voice of the rabbit hero Mirko filled the alley as the high-ranked pro shot in, slamming into the hero killer to send him rolling back, the unexpected pain from whatever Izuku's blood had done giving her an opening. "His blood," Izuku panted, feeling the roiling surge starting to subside. "He ingests your blood and you're paralyzed. So avoid the knives, thanks for the tip, Greenhorn." Mirko nodded as he struggled to get to his feet, grabbing Native and Ida. "Get them out of here. The others should be here soon. Don't die." Izuku grit his teeth as he began to draw the paralyzed dead weights. "Don't give me orders, brat." Mirko snapped back as she rushed in, attacking the hero killer as Izuku slowly dragged the 2 off, his body feeling sluggish and breathing difficult, even if it was getting easier as he went. Dauntless, getting closer to the exit, he heard the voice of Gang Orca. "Here," Izuku shouted, spotting Gang Orca with several other pros, most of whom rushed past him to try and back up Mirko, Snatch and Crust among them. "Kid, talk to me," Gang Orca noted his shaking, his raspy breath. "Hospital." Izuku grunted even as Ida was and Native were taken by some sidekicks. "They need, so do you." Gang Orca frowned. "Can you turn back?" "Bad idea." Izuku shook his head. Whatever his body had tried doing to adapt, it was having side effects that were still being corrected. He needed all his resistances right now. "Damn it all." Gang Orca grit his teeth. "You lot get them to the hospital. I'm going to go help Endeavor with cleaning up the rest of this mess. He and his kid already have the Nomu handled, but there might be more villains out and about." "Sir," the sidekicks saluted as they got Izuku and the others into a vehicle. As he got loaded in, he saw a green flare shot skyward, signifying that the hero killer was captured. It was over. "How is he?" Orca frowned as he stood by the doctor. His student intern Dauntless passed out in a hospital bed. "Better now thanks to that healing factor of his." The doctor nodded, although it took a bit before he felt it was safe enough to turn back. "Given the blood samples we took, I don't blame him." You had needles that could get through his skin. He did a double take at the doctor, having not expected something as thin as a medical needle to do the trick. We have a nurse whose quirk lets them boost the piercing ability and durability of anything they hold. The doctor elaborates, helps when people's quirks make their skin harder like that young man's. Still, his blood has changed since that fight against Stain. The doctor handed over the charts, something Orca only had access to as he was the hero in charge of the kid. His body deemed having his blood taken a threat when it was used by Stain's quirk, so his blood is now highly acidic. It took his own healing being bolstered by the weaker healing quirks of my staff to help speed up his body's adaptations to the point he wasn't burning himself from within. Because his adaptations only show up once the cause is done being healed from. Gang Orca remembered that vaguely from the file UA sent him. I suppose we're lucky Stain was only taking drops of blood from Dauntless. I'm just relieved he got his flare out. The doctor shuddered. Stain was a monster I'm glad is off the streets. Anyway, the acidic blood is only in his transformed state. His base one doesn't have that issue. I'd recommend he take his training easy for a day or two in his other form, possibly just doing studying while transformed to clear up any lingering adaptations his body needs to do in regard to his new blood. Thank you, doctor. He nodded. Is there anything else I should know? For now. No, the doctor shook his head. You can go and wait for the young man to wake up if you wish. I have other patients to go attend to after that madness. Thank you, doctor. Gang Orca nodded as the doctor left, leaving him alone with his passed-out student, finally feeling safe to collapse in a chair and breathe. Groaning, Izuku sat up, blinking away spots as he woke. Ah, good you're awake. A woman in a nurse's uniform smiled at him. I was worried the anesthesia wouldn't work on you given your quirk's resistances. I've never had it used on me before. Izuku groaned as he sat up, his joints cracking from how stiff he was, silently wondering if he'd adapt to the medical drug next. I see. Well, the nurse was cut off by the door opening. A massive man with a dog's head wearing a suit entered, flashing a police badge as he did so. Young man, I'm Chief Tsuragami. The beagle-headed man spoke up, gesturing for the nurse to leave. I'm here to talk to you about the Stain incident. Behind the cop, Izuku saw Gang Orca and even Mirko entering his hospital room. What about it? Izuku winced as he finally managed to get a stubborn spot on his back to pop. It's not normal for a first-year hero student to even encounter one of Japan's most wanted, let alone fight them for any length of time. The chief woofed out. That's because he wasn't fighting me seriously and my quirk is defensive enough to keep me alive. Izuku sighed out, knowing damn well that was the truth. What do you mean he wasn't fighting you seriously? Gang Orca frowned, Izuku's mentor moving to stand closer to Izuku's side. He seemed entertained by me. Izuku frowned, trying to think how to put it properly into words. He kept going on about how I was so close to his ideal of a true hero. He kept lecturing me during the fight and didn't seem to think I was that much of a threat. Lecturing you? On what? The chief's gaze was laser-focused. About how I shouldn't be so willing to forgive fake heroes. Izuku shook his head. My pledge back at the sports festival. I said I don't care why people want to be a hero so long as they put saving others above any ambitions. Stain was apparently watching and got angry that I was so close but had that hang-up. Fucked up Fruit Loop. Mirko grumbled irritably, Izuku noting her leg hadn't stopped bouncing since they entered his room. Now what did that poor cereal ever do to you for that comparison? Izuku asked with a weak grin, hoping to ease the tension. The snort from Gang Orca gave him some hope at least. Well, all of that helps actually. The chief nodded. Gang Orca already confirmed that you had permission to use your quirk as you deemed fit in the incident, so that won't be an issue. Your information will help with the profilers who plan to question Stain, as well as those in legal trying to figure out if they have to worry about his lawyer going for the criminal insanity route. You'll be credited as aiding in the capture of Stain, given you're the one who initially found and slowed him down. At that bit of information, Izuku's eyes widened. That's right, Squirt. Mirko grinned, giving him a thumbs up, and I wanted to thank you as well. At seeing Gang Orca and the chief look at her wide-eyed, the battle bunny gave them both a glare, the two massive men flinching under it. Oh, fuck off. I can thank people when they earn it, damn it. Kid's warning about the Dracula wannabe's quirk helped out. I dodged some hits I would have taken otherwise. Glad to help. Izuku gave his favorite female pro a weak grin, still processing everything, and the fact that he was getting a documented assisted arrest already. Does that mean he's going to get part of the pay? Gang Orca decided to ask. I know there's a bounty on Stain's arrest, and there's the usual method a hero gets their pay for stopping crime. But does Dauntless receive a share given his credited assistance? That's up to the commission, the chief shrugged. The answer apparently above his pay grade. There's never been a student taking out a name this big before they even get a provisional license, so I'm not sure how it'll be handled. I do know one thing though. Gang Orca's eyes crinkled as the man smirked teasingly. You'll probably set of a brand new wave of memes given your first ones are so popular. Dauntless, the stain removal hero. Izuku's groan was drowned out by the cackling of the adults who were enjoying his suffering at the imminent bad puns. Interesting. Jonathan Crane, the scarecrow, tilted his head as he watched the news feeds from the safe house he and Lobo were currently set up in. What is? Lobo grunted, the blue bruiser draining another beer. Seems like heroes just doing their usual boring-ass routine. That Shigaraki brat's jealousy may have given us a few openings. Crane explained, finding having a physically dangerous assistant who was immune to his methods, with the correct mindset at any rate, was quite helpful. Opening, all he did was throw a temper tantrum while failing to recruit a mosquito. Lobo rolled his eyes, but now more attention than ever is on the young Dauntless. Crane's grin was a little wide to be normal, a first year credited with being vital to the takedown of one of the most wanted men in the country. A serial killer who's killed many pros in single combat. As he spoke, Crane took a mock-shocked tone. Why isn't someone like that a pro already? You want him put out into the field early so he doesn't have UA's protection. Lobo realized. Exactly, Crane grinned as he finished mixing another batch of hallucinogens, fond of using them along with his quirk as needed. And even if that doesn't work, it'll still put pressure on UA to have him attempt something like a work study sooner. More time out of the school, more chances for us. Not to mention Shiggy is probably gonna do more stupid shit. Lobo grinned as he picked up the latest weapon All for One had given the man. We could stalk his jobs and take the kid out once he finishes kicking Handjob's ass. Exactly, Crane grinned, so pleased that Lobo was able to pick up on the plan. Brutish the man may be, but he wasn't an idiot most of the time. Anyway, I'm going to arrange a few incidents. I'll use my chemicals and gases on this Dauntless to the point he thinks he's safe, and only then use my quirk, let him lower his own guard. The summer camp seems a good time to try and take him. In the meantime, I have a special task for you that I believe you'll find entertaining. So, girl, you looking forward to seeing your man's new hero costume? Mina grinned at her as they walked out towards one of the training fields. The internships had just ended, and their teachers had decided to see what they had learned with a joint training session. I do not know what you are insinuating, Acid Queen. Ryuko kept herself composed, refusing to allow any blush on her face. She knew damn well what the Acid Creator was insinuating, but she refused to give Mina the satisfaction. Is that so? Tokage leaned in, joining Mina in the teasing as the girls from the 2 first-year hero courses continued into the large waiting room, still having a few minutes before the lesson was set to actually start. So what you're saying is you won't mind at all if, say, Momo, Kendo, or Chaco tried ogling up your green-haired husbando? Despite the common belief to the contrary, when I am unsure of the origins, I must reiterate, Midoriya is not my husbando, as you put it, lizardy. Ryuko made sure she didn't use Midoriya's first name this time. Just because she felt warm inside whenever he was near doesn't mean she was infatuated with her adaptive friend. I never said it was Midoriya. Tokage grinned wider. There are other green-haired boys here after all. And go on, use his first name, we all know you want to. Ryuko was cut off as they heard some of the boys walking down the hall, having finished changing. Hey guys, look who finally got himself a hero costume. Kirishima called out, arm around Midoriya's shoulders. Midoriya's costume certainly made him stand out now, black dress pants and a matching dress shirt. A dark vest with green filigree. A green tie that bore a tie pin looking like the shield crest on the uniforms of the water hose heroes. On his hip was a pistol of some sort, and there was a holster on his back that sat empty for the moment. Yeah, it was a gift from Gang Orca. Izuku gave a grin, running a hand back through his hair, drawing attention to the dark gloves on his hands. It's all made out of my hair, so it'll grow with me. It's supposed to fix my concerns about costumes being destroyed constantly, although I'm not sure if that means it can fix itself, is more durable, or just easier to repair. She knew it was somewhat rude, but she barely registered what her Cruz friend. Her damn it, she couldn't even lie to herself about it anymore. Be back. She grabbed Mina and Tokage, who were grinning, fully aware of what was going on as she drugged them off, the boys being confused in the background. What was that all about? Izuku blinked in confusion as he saw Ryuko drag Mina and Tokage off. I don't even know, man, girls are confusing. Kirishima sighed, rubbing the back of his head. I have to ask though, what's with the empty harness thing on your back? Tetsu asked, gesturing to said piece of apparel. Well, I got this for when I'm not shifted. Izuku pat the side of his new pistol. It's one of the cement guns from Gang Orca's agency, just modeled to look more like a traditional pistol to fit my outfit better. Gang Orca's a great mentor, but the man is very insistent on one's tools matching their outfit. Smart man. Yaoyorozu nodded with a small smirk. The other girls Ryuko hadn't drug off, seemingly aware of what was going on, even if they didn't seem all that inclined to share it at the present moment. Anyway, Izuku gave them a playful mock glare. This pistol won't exactly work when I'm transformed. My hands are too big to even hold it properly. And if I had it made for my transformed state, then it would be way too big for my untransformed state to use, not to mention how tricky carrying it would be. Melee weapons have the same issue, so the support course is currently trying to make a durable weapon that can have a collapsible form to carry on my back. That way my transformed state can be elegantly armed, as Gang Orca put it. They're just happy you're finally accepting their help, aren't you? Kendo smirked as Izuku grimaced. Apparently the first years in the support course have taken it as a competition. Izuku admitted what Power Loader had told him, or at least that's what the support course teacher described it as. I'm the only first-year hero course student to not ask for any sort of special costume or support gear, initially, so now that I finally have put in a request. They're feeling, he trailed off, searching for the right word. Competitive, Todoroki supplied. Exactly. Izuku nodded gratefully to his elemental friend who returned it. I must say I do like the look you're sporting. Shinso nodded. Makes me wonder if I need a bit more flair to my uniform. Use drama to unsettle my opponents into talking and all that. Have you considered some sort of smoke screen generator? Izuku asked as the rest of their classmates continued to enter the waiting area. That plus throwing your voice with those persona chords you told me about would make a really good combination. I haven't. Remind me to swing by the support course later to ask if it's doable. Shinso nodded, seeming eager for new ways to troll people in the name of hero work. Take protection, things blow up there. Tetsu shuddered. It can't be that bad, can it? Shinso frowned before noting the flat stares from everyone else within earshot. Metapod Kakuna, your services are needed. Let the memes die, the teased duo shouted in frustration. Even the ones mocking the legendary heroic stain remover. Tokage pouted as the trio of girls returned. Okay, those can stay. Kirishima adjusted his stance as Izuku gaped. Traitor, he grumbled at his friend who smirked unashamed. Not even guilty. Kirishima cackled as the rest of the class finally came in. All right, class, time to get ready for today's exercise. Vlad King called out as the last student stepped in, this one being Monoma, who was glaring at Izuku's new hero costume. This one will be similar to the bomb exercise you did at the beginning of term, only this time it will be 2-on-2. Added to that, both teams will know about each other going in so that there's more time to strategize how you can show off what you've learned and how you've grown. The catch, each duo will be made of one student from each class. That got a lot of attention as those involved began to whisper about who they thought or hoped would be made partners. First up, we have Izuku Midoriya and Ryuko Yanagi against Katsuki Bakugo and Shoto Todoroki. Aizawa read out the random names before pausing, looking at them again, and muttering something under his breath in frustration. Well, this be one hell of an opening match. Shinso's deadpan remark summed the situation up nicely. Frowning, Nezu stirred his tea as he considered the current situation before him. Izuku Midoriya, a first year, and already causing far more drama than his predecessors. The Hero Commission had already come to the decision that as Midoriya was not a licensed hero, he was not entitled to receive a share of the pay for helping to apprehend a villain. Furthermore, as he was not the one to defeat Stain himself, he was not eligible for any amount of the bounty they had placed on the hero killer. If only it was that simple, though. There was a debate going through the parliament about what to do with Izuku. Someone had apparently pushed forward a notion to have Midoriya graduated early and drafted to the front lines of hero work. The Hero Commission was backing this idea with the addendum of having him assigned as a sidekick to a respectable hero, code for one of their lackeys. More conservative politicians were against the idea of rushing things, but public opinion and backhouse dealings could sway things far more than he'd like. We need a power player in the political field. Nezu rubbed his temples with frustration. All Might was a respected hero, but not a politician. The best he could do was sway the common people's opinion and direct the paparazzi with his own gravitation. The other alumni, those connected to Midoriya's circle and not, had the same issue. Tsukachi was a cop, so he was out. I really didn't want to have to do this. Nezu sighed as he flipped a switch. Rapidly, his office walls shifted, becoming soundproof. His windows darkened as they tinted to prevent people from looking in remotely. Finally, he entered a passcode on one of his drawers to pull out a phone he kept for emergencies. A secure line so rarely used to help keep it secret. Why, hello there. Nezu's call was answered almost instantly. May I ask who's calling me and how they got this number? I must say, if it's about my car's extended warranty, then I'll be hanging up. This is Nezu, principal of UA. Nezu kept any displeasure at having to bring in outside help out of his voice. I've known of this number and who you are for some time. But I've come because I wish to parley for an alliance Rikia Yatsubashi. Or do you prefer Re-Destro? Damn it, this isn't going to be pretty. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose as he saw what the randomizer had spat out. At least he hoped it was a randomizer. It could have just as easily been Nezu getting bored and making pairs he found amusing. I already had some Mentos and Midnight rig up an emergency system in case any students get too invested in this. Can whispered back, gesturing to a button on the console that releases a stored version of Midnight's quirk into the building. They go too far and we can end it that way. And I wasn't told Bikaryu's. Aizawa's eye twitched. You were napping during the meeting. Ken didn't even bat an eye as he threw Aizawa and his sleep schedule under the bus. Damn it, fine, let's see what they do. Their planning period should be over now anyway. Aizawa looked at the screen to see the hero pair of Midoriya and Yanagi entering the building. The villains meanwhile had split off. Todoroki was encasing the room with the bomb in a bubble of ice, while Bakugo was taking off to try and fight Midoriya and Yanagi. He just hoped that was an agreed plan and not Bakugo being a loose cannon. I see Midoriya's taking point. All Might said softly as they observed the screens, the students behind them doing the same. Makes sense with his quirk. Kan nodded. Yanagi will probably use her quirk to control the capture tape. Let Midoriya be the wall while she uses her telekinesis to attack from any direction. She studied with Captain Celebrity, right? All Might observed the telekinetic girl who had both of the hero team capture tape roles. Yeah, I'm just glad she didn't pick up any bad habits from that idiot. Aizawa nodded. What about Bakugo? He's been subdued since his return. Kan answered before glancing at the screens, now notwithstanding, of course. I don't know what Genus said or did, but the kid's been switching between raging at people and being in silent, miserable contemplation. Think we should talk to him? All Might frowned as he saw Bakugo reach Midoriya, the blonde's red eyes blazing with too many emotions to count or discern from here. I'm already on it, Kan assured as Bakugo reached them, launching an explosion that was a great deal more controlled than he'd done in the beginning of the year. Even still, it wasn't even close to being enough to damage Midoriya while transformed. Oh, she certainly improved. All Might smirked, Aizawa following the blonde oaf's eyes to see that Yanagi was manipulating the ground with her telekinesis, preparing traps for Bakugo to fall into while Midoriya focused on defense. The two were a terrifyingly efficient team already. Added to that, while Bakugo was focused on the mountain of gray muscle that was Midoriya, plus the traps opening up in the floor, he was unaware of the capture tape slithering out of the vents before it wrapped around his limbs. Bakugo is captured, Aizawa called out as the blonde went limp, eyes vacant and unseeing as he seemed to be struggling to process something. Aizawa hoped that Kan's conversation would be both soon and effective. How do you think they'll handle Todoroki? All Might frowned. I'm not even sure what that girl's upper limit is anymore. Aizawa trailed off as the two students reached Todoroki's ice bubble. Yanagi was concentrating, hands held out towards the ice as it started to vibrate, cracking apart as she used her telekinesis to vibrate the construct. The ice continued to crack apart, broken pieces being caught and hurled at the walls to force a way through, Midoriya helping by punching the weakened ice. The report from Captain Celebrity stated that he didn't focus on practical hero work. Kan supplied, he did some lectures on that but stated given his history, he felt we were better to teach her that than he was. No, he spent that entire week putting her through Quirk boot camp, like what we typically do during the summer session. As the blood hero spoke, the ice broke apart as Midoriya charged in, drawing Todoroki's attention, while Yanagi simply used her power to bring the bomb to her partner. Hero team wins, All Might called out. Well done, everyone. Alright, next groups will be hero team of Eijiro Kirishima and Setsuna Tokage against Tetsu and Mina Ashido as the villains. Grinning, Izuku stood beside Rieko, something she'd insisted he stick to calling her just before their match started, looking at the screens where more of their friends were preparing to fight. Is it just me, or do those two seem to have something on their mind outside the fights? Shinso frowned in confusion as they looked at the four on the screens. They're always plotting something. Izuku sighed in fond exasperation at his friends, Rieko nodding beside him as she shuffled closer. You were talking to them before, do you know what they're planning? He asked the white-haired telekinetic. I might be in the know of the reason as to why our friends are exceptionally enthused for their current bout of combat. Rieko answered, although you shall have to wait and see as to what the exact reason is for yourself. I believe the term is spoilers, is it not? Sassy little meme queen. Izuku grumbled as Ryuko smiled happily and scooted until she was shoulder to shoulder to him. It made him feel happy, although he wasn't sure why. "I shall await your arrival then." Nezu nodded as he finished the call, hanging up and finally letting out the frustration he felt. The phone was dropped back into its sealed drawer, that line now only going to be used in relation to his potential new ally, so he needed a new one. Nothing is ever easy. Nezu rubbed a hand down his face. At the very least, Re-Destro had agreed to come and parley. He'd even agreed to meet at UA itself. Nezu wasn't sure if that was a sign of good faith, a sign of Re-Destro being arrogant, or what. Either way, he'd agreed to have only himself and Aizawa in the room during negotiations. He'd hoped to get Tsukachi and All Might, but the first was shot down on behalf of being a cop, and their deal technically being illegal as it was designed to undermine the government's current actions. All Might, on the other hand, would have been far too aggressive of a play. In return, Re-Destro agreed to bring two of his allies, Curious and Trumpet. Admittedly, Nezu had fun commenting their real names when Re-Destro had used their coded titles, but the man didn't seem as surprised after Nezu had openly showed he knew who Rikia was. "It's for my students." Nezu repeated his mantra to calm himself down. He knew this could end in either brilliance or disaster with no middle ground available, and just prayed he made the right call. "It's for my students, and my country pissing off the commission is just a bonus." The last part he let a bit of his sadistic smirk shine through. If nothing else, this would be interesting. Turning to the screens that showed his current problem child, a phrase he'd never thought he'd adopt from Aizawa, Nezu noted that the match of the two hardening students along with their friends were fighting. The boys were having another slugfest, while the girls were testing ability dodge against ability to hit a moving target with streams of acid. The match, in the end, was a draw, but the girls seemed happy about it, telling something to the boys who seemed confused but nodded. Most of the matches were nowhere near as dramatic as the interclass trainings typically were. But then again, this was just the students showing off what they'd learned in their internships. Seeing young Kendo knock out her own partner when Monoma ended up grabbing somewhere he shouldn't have to copy Yaoyorozu's Quirk in the scuffle was funny though. He did hope it was an accident, but that was for their teachers to figure out. One thing that did grab his attention was young Ida cornering Uraraka as their match ended, seemingly pushing for something. The girl was confused and very on guard at first, but after a bit seemed to wilt and relent. How strange. As they returned, theirs being the final match, he saw Uraraka approaching Midoriya, gesturing to Ida who was staying behind as everyone else began filing out to change out of their costumes and head home for the day. "Now what is this about?" Nezu steepled his fingers, needing to know. "Uraraka said you wanted to talk to me." Izuku crossed his arms as he stood in front of Ida, the engine Quirk user having somehow convinced his friend to pass along the message as the rest of the classes filled out of the room, leaving the two alone. Ida took a deep breath before getting on his knees, forehead pressed to the ground. "I wish to offer my deepest apologies." "What?" Izuku blinked, this being the last thing he'd expected today. "Well, second to last, Bakugo doing it was more unlikely. I was wrong." Ida was trembling and Izuku wasn't sure if it was from self-loathing or having to force out the words, "I treated you like scum. I looked for the worst in everything you did. But when I almost spat on everything my family raised me to do to believe, you still saved me anyway. I don't expect friendship, I don't expect forgiveness. But I have to make it clear that I am sorry, that I regret what I've done, and that I intend to change. I stand up, Ida." Izuku gave a tired and confused smile as he pulled the tall teen up. We both could have handled things better before. And what you did wasn't, I've been through worse. It wasn't the time or place to get into his past school interactions. I'm willing to bury the hatchet though, to start over if you are." Ida's grateful smile let Izuku know he did the right thing. "Welcome, Rikia." Nezu smiled politely at the trio from the Meta Liberation Army. "I have a meeting room prepared this way." Giving a gesture, Aizawa started walking, Nezu currently riding on the underground hero's shoulder. "I must say, Principal Nezu, I was surprised to get your call." Re-Destro gave him a bemused smirk, "let alone an invitation to the prestigious UA. I'm assuming everyone else is gone at the moment." "Yes, the 5 of us are the only ones here." Nezu nodded, not wanting to let word get out before he was ready. That said, he still had a small army of robots on hand if things went south, and a panic button ready to call every hero he could. "Any chance of me scoring an interview with the most elusive pro-hero in recent media history?" Curious grinned. Her expression somehow both playfully teasing and completely honest as she looked at Aizawa. "None," Aizawa grit out, thankfully keeping his quirk from triggering threateningly. Honestly, Nezu was just glad the man didn't hiss like a cat at water. "Pooh." Curious pouted as the five got to the meeting room, Re-Destro pulling out some sort of device, probably scanning for bugs or microphones. "It's clean," the man nodded to his two subordinates who nodded pleased as everyone took their seats. "Before we begin, I have a question." Trumpet, better known as Koku Hanabata, leader of Hearts and Minds Party, leaned forward. "I'm assuming it's why I never did anything if I knew your identities already." Nezu remained calm as he prepared tea, offering it to both Aizawa and his guests. "Exactly," Trumpet nodded, the man much more on guard than his boss or colleague. "Simple, I saw no need to." Nezu smiled as he sipped his tea, noting Re-Destro doing the same. "And no need," Trumpet was flabbergasted. "May I be frank?" Nezu looked at the trio politely, waiting for Re-Destro's nod before continuing. "I find many of the current government's laws to be stupid. The majority of the Quirk-based laws were on the books before even your father's aims to have them lifted." He nodded to Re-Destro, laws back when the numbers of Quirked versus Quirkless were far different than they are now. When we were still arguably in the dark ages of Quirks. Those laws were made out of fear and made to be restrictive. As you humans gained more understanding of Quirks, the fear turning into pride, those laws stayed though. "Do you know why? Control." Re-Destro nodded with calm that concealed rage Nezu knew was smoldering within. "Exactly." Nezu's scar pulsed in phantom pain as he gave a sadistic smile, specifically the control of the Hero Commission and the politicians in their pocket. "The Commission would label you a villain as they did your father, but he is only a villain because he lost." The commander of the Liberation Army's eyes narrowed at that. "And what are you hoping to insinuate through that?" The man's tone showed the whole potential for this meeting would hinge on Nezu's next answer. The man sought to fight against a government he thought as oppressive, against laws he saw as corrupt. Nezu hid any nervousness he felt as he stirred his tea. He knew anyone could realistically destroy him in a straight fight, and Aizawa might not be able to stop all three before they could do so if this went south. Look at your human history for a moment, the American Revolution. It was people who fought against laws and a government they felt was corrupt. To England they were rebels, criminals, villains. But to their fellows they were freedom fighters, a resistance. They won so they were remembered as such. History is written by those who win, and the government in favor of control won when your father sought to bring about change. You don't see us as villains, you don't see my father as a villain. Re-Destro set his tea down, the man not even bothering to hide his surprise. "You've yet to show me otherwise." Nezu pulled out a copy of Destro's book, printed for Nezu's size. "Your father's stated goals were about a world where quirks were not feared, where people could use the gifts they were born with. It made no mention of oppressing those without quirks. It made no mention of only the strong may live while the weak perish. Simply, we have the right to do what we were born with the ability to do. That any laws related to quirks should simply be in the act they're used for, relating to the crime, not the quirk. You've yet to show me your motives are different." Or at least he really hoped they weren't. "To my Liberation Army, it is one's personal duty to work with their quirk." Re-Destro leaned back in his chair, offering clarification. Was it possible the man was hoping to recruit them as official members? That it is one's responsibility to work to push their gifts as far as they can go. But what about those with weak quirks, or no quirks? Nezu raised an eyebrow, curious as to where this would go. "Even a weak quirk could be trained." Re-Destro's tone was careful. The man was either considering the question carefully and being careful of his words to not send the wrong message, or he was simply bending his ideals in the hopes of a favorable alliance. "And the quirkless," Aizawa pushed, the man's quirk having him fight all but quirkless, so it made sense he had at least some strong feelings towards their plight. "I've not thought that much on them. My focus was on the laws that oppressed those with quirks, denying freedoms that should be as natural as breathing." Re-Destro shook his head. Nezu hoped the man was being honest. "But I doubt you called us in to have a political debate." Curious spoke up. "To stop one actually." Nezu looked over at Trumpet. "One I'm sure you're at least vaguely aware of given Parliament is debating on forcing one of my students into early graduation and onto the front lines. That dauntless boy who fought Stain." Re-Destro let a flash of anger shine in his eyes before it vanished. Interesting, exactly." Nezu nodded. "I don't have anyone in the political field I can call an actual ally. You however have Trumpet." Re-Destro nodded, figuring out where this was going. "You want my resources and the political party Trumpet heads to stop this debate in Parliament. Or at the very least do what's possible to mitigate it." Nezu nodded. He'd prefer it be stopped flat out, but he knew not only was it potentially too much to ask, but having more range on his wants would make any sort of deal easier to secure. It would be foolish to force the boy out so far. Re-Destro frowned, especially after he helped remove that bastard Stain. Oh, there was animosity there, most interesting indeed. You've yet to saw how this would benefit us though, Trumpet frowned. As I said, I agree with the ideals preached by Destro. Nezu kept his statements carefully crafted, that punishing someone for using their quirk to commit a crime is reasonable, but that using the quirk itself should not be an inherent crime. I would be willing to help promote such ideals so long as it does not turn classist or quirkiest. I'd introduce you to young bright minds attending my school and those already graduated. After all, the best way to shape the future is to mold the next generation. Re-Destro let out a laugh, holding out his cup. Why, Principal Nezu, I believe we have a deal to hammer out details on. More tea, please. So, any idea what this is about? Izuku frowned as he looked at Kirishima and Tetsu. The two hardening quirk users were, much like himself, not dressed in their usual styles. And did your parents force you guys to dress up too? Yeah, Kirishima rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Mom seemed really excited for some reason. Yeah, mine too, Tetsu nodded. It was weird. But nah, I don't know anything except Mina said we'd be meeting here. Heya boys. Hearing the voice of said bubbly pinkette, Izuku turned to see Mina, Tokage, and Ryuko all waiting for him. Izuku was vaguely aware that Mina and Tokage had dressed up somewhat as well, but he honestly couldn't pull his eyes from Ryuko. Even with his nicer clothes on, he felt underdressed as he looked at her. She was wearing her usual favorite color of white, although this time she'd added more colors to accessorize. Her white skirt had a green belt. Her blouse had green filigree and designs. There was even a clip in her hair. Izuku was so distracted by how beautiful she looked it took him a moment to realize that the green of her accessories and the makeup he was noticing now matched his hair. He felt his cheeks growing warm. Hey Tokage, Kirishima spoke up to his side, the crimson bulwark stammering and stuttering. You look great. So do you, Mina. Tetsu sounded just as thrown as Kirishima. Thank you, Izuku. Ryuko gave him a shy smile, her own cheeks reddening as he continued to stare dumbstruck. I'm really glad you came. She was wringing her hands, sounding like she'd been practicing this, especially if she wasn't as verbose as she usually was. Of course, Ryuko. Izuku gave her a warm smile, hoping he could make her relax. Why did you ask us all to come? Kirishima gulped even as Tokage linked her arm with his. Simple, my red pointy friend. Tokage all but purred as Mina copied her actions with Tetsu. You three have the privilege of taking the three of us out on a date today. At those words, Izuku's gaze snapped to Ryuko's, noting her shy expression as she tucked some hair behind her ear but didn't deny it. He remembered her strange reaction to him first coming out in his new hero costume. The warm feeling that he got in his gut whenever he smiled that couldn't tell what it was, until now at least. Sweet mercy, he felt like an idiot. Then I suppose we should get started. Izuku worked to muster up all the courage he could as he smiled at Ryuko, taking her hand with his own as she leaned into his side. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious.